excited about Leigh Ann Shirey to also present today, and she's going to be going over some best practices under fundraising, especially with pandemic. How do you get people to fundraise? What are some pivot things that you can do, some ideas? So Leigh Ann, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself.
Sure. I'm excited to be presenting to everyone. As Lonnie said, my name is Leigh Ann. I've had about 10 years experience in development, working mostly with special events fundraising, but I've also done some individual giving. And I've worked at various nonprofits, including the American Lung Association, the National MS Society, New York Roadrunners, and Memorial Sloan Kettering. So excited to share what some of those organizations are doing during this time, and then also just taking a step back and looking at some of the challenges this last year has presented and what we can think about moving forward as we start to make these 2021 decisions.
Wonderful, great. Well, I'm going to turn everything over to you. So this will be, I'm really excited to hear what you have to say on the whole fundraising world.
Great. So first, I'm actually going to talk about just 2020 challenges from what I've heard from a lot of my colleagues, and something that I faced too, was just those early months, that early week actually, of when we all went into lockdown in mid-March, and what were the challenges there. And then as we look to 2021, we know that a lot of people are struggling with, do we hold an in-person event? Do we have another online experience for people? What do we do? And then just looking at some of the learnings that from March to now, and looking at what we do know moving forward. So early March, there was a lot of uncertainty with, if we have an event right now, we're gonna postpone it maybe to summer and fall. And we all thought it was going to go away a lot earlier than we thought it would. So when events were postponed, a lot of them actually after the postponement had to eventually get canceled. Events that were during that time in early March pretty much had to get canceled as well. And then there was that piece, is there some type of language in the contract where we are asking, we don't want to refund people because we were counting on those dollar bills, but that wasn't as upfront as we know that it now should be. And Lonnie had touched on that, I know, on Tuesday. So looking at when nonprofits had canceled events later on that they postponed, that meant there was less time to pivot and to really plan for a virtual experience, or what else can they be doing now to engage their donors. So as early as you can make a decision, if you are debating on going fully to an online experience, I would encourage you to really think about that. And what we do know moving forward into 2021 is that there is the promise of a vaccine, but as Lonnie had said, it's not going to be widely available until summer. So what we know now is cases have been increasing, especially after Thanksgiving. We're heading into Hanukkah, to Christmas, into New Year's, and we can expect cases to increase later on. We know that there is a new administration coming in who's planning on taking a more conservative approach to COVID. And then we know right now that events aren't going to look the same. They are going to have a reduced field size. With that being said, we've also learned how to make events safer, and people have become accustomed to wearing masks. So we do know a little bit more about that, and HAL Sports has done a great job of contingency planning and really figuring out how to make these events safe. Something to consider though is that reduced field size, and is it going to be beneficial to have to pay these costs for the event, or can you reduce some of those operating costs by having an online experience and saving a little bit? So something else to consider. And then as you're looking, you don't have to make this decision on your own. I would encourage people to ask their fundraisers. If your event has a committee, if you have a board, your top fundraisers and donors, ask them how they feel about attending an event. And even take that a step further. If they participate in the event with family and friends, if it's an event that has team fundraising, ask if they think their team members are going to show up. Are their family and friends going to come? Why someone might say like, yes, I'm gung-ho, I'm a huge supporter of your organization, I will be there. Is their network going to be there? So make sure you ask those questions to folks. Also ask them what they're interested in. So if there isn't an in-person component, what types of stuff are they looking for in a virtual experience? So I actually heard from someone, it was a walk event, and someone had said, I'm so excited that I don't have to wake up early in the morning, that I know I'm not missing out because this event has gone completely virtual. I can do it on my time, and I don't have to worry about parking and getting out and taking public, or if I had to take public transportation, I don't have to worry about that. So listen to what people are saying. Also, I would encourage folks to not rebrand their event. We know it will eventually come back. So instead of rebranding your event, make sure it still has a similar look and feel as it did as when it was in person. I encourage folks to stick to taglines that acknowledge that, hey, maybe we're not gathering together, but still go along with the event. So something that I've seen is walk your way for a walk event or my run. So think about how you can be creative there. And then also with in-person events, dates are always really important. Same with virtual events, is be aware of traditions, be aware of holidays. The Jewish holiday and Mother's Day are all in the spring. So just make sure that you're being inclusive and including those people that probably couldn't participate if it was on a certain day. And then as far as you were interested in doing a hybrid event, could consider making it a little bit smaller. So instead of, or I should say, downsizing the event. So maybe you send out the route of what the event would have been if it's a run or a walk. And then at the end, you have a group of folks there maybe cheering, or if you can set up a smaller finish line or a step and repeat at the end, that you can take pictures and have a sense of accomplishment, and you were still at an in-person smaller event. That's something to consider too. So we do know now that the economy has obviously taken a hit. A lot of people have been laid off from their jobs. We know that a lot of people are really stressed out right now with not being able to see their family. They might be worried about their family. Someone close to them could be in a vulnerable situation. Even if they haven't lost their job, they might be worried about job security. So a lot of people are really stressed out during this time. So how do we talk to donors? We just want to make sure that we're acknowledging the climate. When we're used to calling people and asking for an ask, telling them that we have an event coming up, will you sign up? We're used to asking them for money. Take a step back, and instead of having a goal from that conversation, just ask them how they're doing and be an active listener. And once you do that, you can navigate the conversation. So if someone says, hey, I'm not really doing that great right now, then just listen to them and then let them know that their community is there for when they're ready, and have valued their past support. If someone says, hey, if the conversation can lend itself to how do you feel about fundraising right now? Someone might say, like, actually, I don't really feel that great about asking people to give right now. And then as a development professional, can relate to that, saying, I'm having a hard time fundraising as well. But when you're ready to come back, we have the resources, the tools, we can craft your message and let people know why we really need your support right now, but when you're ready. When making those phone calls too, we've heard of people who really want to help and ask, like, what can I do right now? And then at that point, be transparent. If your organization is struggling, if they've had to do layoffs, let them know. If you've had to cut programs, let them know. If your organization has set up some type of COVID relief fund, tell them about what you're doing and tell them about what you're doing now if there is something that pertains to COVID. A lot of organizations have taken a step back from research and their primary mission to focus on the environment right now. But really make sure that you're an active listener, and can't stress that enough. And just if you meet people with kindness, they'll remember that later on. And people, when they are connected to a mission and a certain cause, they will come back when they're ready, and they will remember how you treated them at that point. So stewardship, obviously, it's really important at this time right now. So staying in touch with those phone calls, making sure that they don't always need to be tied for an ask, but really making sure that you're sharing your story, you're communicating constantly with updates, what the organization is doing. That's really important. Make sure you can use social media, let people share their story, just any way you can get out there, and just really try to over communicate without really pitching fundraising and giving right now. Those that do decide to give really show how their fundraising is making a direct impact. I know that a lot of organizations' funds tend to go into a general pool, but if there is an opportunity to give them something tangible that they've contributed to, that goes a long way. Also, sharing with what your colleagues are doing is really beneficial. So for example, if an organization has an overall stat that we serve X amount of people a year, don't focus on that as much, but talk about what your colleague is working on specifically. That way they get a sense of, oh, that's what's going on, or this is who you're working with, and they have more of an idea what's going on within your office and what you're closer to seeing. As far as calling donors that have given, we just had Giving Tuesday. So really try to focus on giving donors who might have only given $10 a call or any amount a call, especially if they won't expect a phone call if you've given a lower amount. And then at that time too, you can qualify your donors. So is this someone that has potential to give later on? Why did they make a donation? Are they connected to our mission right now? Why did they choose to donate? And just, again, really telling them the value of their donation at this moment. And then when it comes to thinking about end of year asks, as we approach if your organization follows the calendar year as their fiscal year, we're approaching those end of the year asks that are typical of nonprofits. And to really consider now if it's the right time. An ask right now could mean that you're asking a lower amount, and you could be forgoing a larger amount if you were to hold off another month or two into 2021. Or you could just make a bigger ask that combines what you think their 2021 giving would be and their 2020 giving amount. you should know those donors, so you should be able to navigate what makes sense at that time. And then another thing is that direct mail has been a hot topic. Do we continue with direct mail? Do we get rid of direct mail because it saves on cost? And if you have any analytics around that, I would highly encourage you to look at that. Do we get donations based on a direct mailing? Is this just something we've always done and it's not really beneficial? Just try to really see if you do have those statistics. In some ways, if you do get rid of direct mailing, it could be a lost opportunity. And now that a lot of organizations aren't doing as much direct mail, your organization could stand out a little bit more. So think about that. And if you can, send personal notes. That really goes a long way, especially now with the holidays coming up, just letting people know that you're thinking of them. And then when it comes to asking people if you're advertising for your event, make sure it's more of a soft ask, telling them with what you're doing right now and, hey, we're open for our event. It's going to look like this year. If you're ready, we'd love to have you sign up, and you'd be providing a lot of value to us. But again, making sure it's not the main focus of an email, because it can be a sensitive subject to people. And if you're able to segment communications, I know it's hard sometimes. If you're sending mass communications, there's just an audience list of maybe participants from a previous year, and it's hard to filter out certain people. But if you have the opportunity to, and you've made those phone calls and those check-in phone calls, if you can separate someone who said, yes, I want to give right now, I want to sign up for an event right now, I'm all in. Or if you have those people who said, no, I'm not ready right now, I'm having a hard time. You don't want them to get the same information the next day saying, hey, sign up for this event. So as much as you can, try to personalize communications. I know it can be difficult, but it would be worth it in the long run. Another thing too is now is the time to try new things. If you've always wanted to do a newsletter and haven't really had the time to put that together, think about doing that. And that's another way to communicate with your donors. I've heard of a lot of success with people that in newsletters or just outreach is introducing yourself as a staff member. And that goes a long way to put a face with a name. And then also storytelling is, of course, so important. And as I mentioned, whether that's on social media, whether that is through email, really get your story out there. And if you can bring in folks who are currently involved with your organization, that makes such an impact. So a lot of it right now is just really back to the basics and really focusing on stewardship. And then that will later be able to help you get to really cultivating those folks. Like I said, if you know your donors right now, you know who's appropriate to ask, and then you know who do I take a step back and I'll ask them later on when they're ready to come back about fundraising and donating. So that's a little bit about what I've seen people doing now, and just not so much focusing on give to us right now, fundraise for us right now, but how are you doing right now, and really listening to where they're at and then meeting them where the donor fundraiser is at. And something I wanted to mention earlier, when it comes to events, if you do decide to have an in-person component, and knowing that field size is likely going to be eliminated or limited, think about those folks who are your top fundraisers, your top donors, and then inviting them first. We know that retained participants often raise more money. So instead of focusing on just getting anyone from the past, give your top supporters a heads up that you're opening, and those limited spots will go to people who have fundraised and have had a previous connection to your cause and involvement. So with that, Lonnie, if you wanted to add anything, or if there's anyone that had any questions or wanted to share something that they've done well that's worked, or something that might not have worked well during this time. I know that everyone's learning. We're constantly pivoting and thinking of new ways to engage our donors, but really stewardship right now, I've seen, is the most successful.
Yeah, thank you very much. And kind of funny you say, Lonnie, do you have anything to add? Of course, I always have something to add. You know, with our own foundation, we struggle with fundraising quite a bit. The type of charity that we are tends to be, it deals with complications during pregnancies. And so a lot of people don't talk about it. It's taboo, sometimes ends up in losses. And it's a lot for people to get their arms wrapped around to actually do a thing where cancer tends to be obviously something that's always out there and people are talking about and stuff. But so some of these challenges, but some things that I think that you said that I wanted to emphasize a bit and give some ideas to people about is you talked about direct mail, and we all know direct mail is, especially during the election time. I don't think anyone paid attention to the 8 million things coming in. It just became, you know, they try to get your attention with bigger. I mean, I feel sorry for the Postal Service because they have to figure out how to get it in your box because they have these huge flyers and things like that that just become trash pretty much immediately. But that doesn't mean direct mail is dead. It doesn't mean that there aren't things that you can do creative. And going back to what Leigh Ann said about being personable, personalizing things, writing handwritten messages, yes, it takes time. But if you look at who your biggest donors are, if you look at who your biggest fundraisers are, it tends to be probably pretty close to that 80-20 rule. If you take 20% if it ends up being that 80% of your money's coming in for your top 20% people, it's probably worth reaching out to them. And like Leigh Ann said, be transparent. Let them know, hey, yeah, we're this big organization, but we're a real organization. We've had to, and I know I keep bringing up the American Lung Association, and Leigh Ann unfortunately was a victim of this. American Lung Association had to unfortunately let a lot of staff go, and that was in essence to make sure they can continue their programs and that they continue to have funding well into 2021 as things rebound, and then hopefully they can bring back everybody at some point, you know, in the some midterm future. But they're all struggling. All charities are having challenges, whether they had a really successful outcome with a campaign or not, because everybody's donation thing, you know, is typically I might donate to 30 charities during the year. I may only be doing 10 this year, and it might only be the 10 that are most important to me, and I might not be giving as much. I'm still trying to give and help out because there's a lot of unknown for people, and we just don't know. You know, we all have this good news, but until we actually get to that point, we're all being very cautious and careful with our money. Trying to, again, everyone wants to help out and is trying to help out as much as possible. But going back to the personalization thing, is there's some interesting things that you can do, and it is a good time to try. And I think it's really good to experiment and see what your ROI is. So instead of doing a direct mailing that maybe you're personalizing or doing something creative with and sending it out to your entire list, take a small segment and maybe do 20 people. And in that 20 people, maybe 10 of them are people that are actively fundraising you for all the time, and maybe 10 are actively fundraising or donating, and maybe 10 of them aren't. And you can measure, so that, you know, because it's a small controlled amount, and you can see if it's actually making a difference. And then the question is, you know, what type of direct mail type of thing do you do? Make it personal, send a personal note. Maybe it's an invitation to them watching a video. You know, you go, please, hey, we have a special message for you on YouTube, and you create a YouTube video that explains is that with a real live person, you know, and maybe some graphics of things like this is like, just because COVID happened doesn't mean that people aren't still getting cancer. And because of that, we've seen less people who are having symptoms or having issues getting diagnosed. So cancer diagnosis is actually down for the year, which doesn't mean that cancer is all of a sudden miraculously starting to not be happening as much. It's just that people aren't getting diagnosed. But even saying that is, people still need to get out there and need to be aware. And so you could have something that is like, I get something in the mail, it says, Lonnie, we've missed you. We have a special message for you. Go to our YouTube channel. And then I go to my YouTube channel and it's showing that, you know, here's a story of somebody who ignored it because they were scared of COVID and now they have cancer. And this is what our organization does, is to help support them. You know, pulling at those heartstrings a bit and trying to personalize that message, but make them feel using technology and direct mail as an invitation. You know, one of the things that this didn't work for us, but it was a really clever idea, is with our charity fundraising event is called the 5K run walk that we do is called the Great Candy Run. So what we did is we took a list, narrowed it down to 50 people of participants, and that hadn't had an association with Candy Run. And what we did is we sent out we got Airheads, the candy, so it was easy to put into an envelope, and a personal message saying, you know, during this year of 2020, we want to give you something sweet in the mail as opposed to just junk mail and whatnot. In addition to that, we invite you with a discount to join us for this fun event where you can experience more fitness or more sweetness in person or even virtually. And it was a really clever idea. Now we didn't get a lot of response from that code. It's hard to know if it turned into registrations or whatnot. So we tried it. It was a neat idea. It didn't necessarily work, but we've seen things actually that can work in those areas. So it is a good idea to try some unique things. And, you know, in mentioning that, I wanted to mention that, Leigh Ann, you also, you know, when you talk about direct mail and you talk about some of these things in fundraising, is to think differently. It is really easy for us. We always like to follow the lead cow. If it worked for that group, I'm going to duplicate it and do it for them. And sometimes you might hit gold and it might actually work for you, but oftentimes it's already been done and it wears on us. It all of a sudden isn't different anymore. But we all tend to follow. We all tend to get into that groove of following and doing the same thing. And not only do we follow what other people do, we continuously, as organizations fundraise, continuously pound our head against the wall doing the exact same thing that we always do. Doesn't mean you shouldn't have an event. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't do a fundraiser or have your black tie dinners and things, obviously when we can get back to doing them. But it does mean is that you want to always think about different things that you can do to keep it interesting and attractive to people and unique, so that it keeps people coming back. And it is now, because of COVID, and we have these small segments and stuff like that, it is an interesting way you can start segmenting things out. The other thing, Leigh Ann, I wanted to touch on that you mentioned and bring up a good point on that is, you talked about reaching out to your top fundraisers and engaging them and giving them different opportunities to get engaged with you and know what's going on with the organization. I like to, there's a term that I've recently come across that you'll hear me use, and I don't mean it to conflict with viruses and COVID, but it's called sneezers. The people that are most engaged and active with your organization love to talk about your organization or your event. And we like to call them sneezers, because a lot of times we get comfortable saying they're already going to support us. I don't need to reach out to them. I don't need to do a big campaign around them. I don't need to push them to help promote things. I need to get after those people that aren't responding. Well, they actually can be really good as we like to call them sneezers, because if you give them collateral and material, they love to boast about it. They love to post it on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Believe it or not, TikTok has become a really big platform for organizations to use with short little videos. It's gotten a lot of attention. So if you have people that are good at TikTok, that are supportive of your organization, that could be a really good way for things to go viral. And you know, engage your sneezers, let them know what's going on, get them part of your team. They love your organization already. They want to help. Besides fundraising, here's some things that they can do is help promote your stuff out there. Mm-hmm. And constantly do it for you, because you know, as again, because there's been reduction in workforces for these organizations and even events, now it's harder. I'm finding it harder. You know, we had somebody that was, you know, we had somebody that was dedicated to doing all the social media. And unfortunately, just due to the situation economically, we couldn't keep that going. So I'm now trying to do that, and I'm doing a terrible job at it. I mean, when I have the chance to do it, I think I'm doing okay at it, but I don't do it regularly or often. But if I have sneezers that I can give it to that already love our organization, and I can give them the collateral and say, can you help me out by posting this? Can you post that? Let them do the work. So those are some really cool ways. Is there any, oh, one other thing I wanted to bring up, and before any questions. This book that which you can't really see because I've got my virtual background on, and maybe Michelle can type this into the thing, but I think this has been one of the most fantastic marketing books. And it isn't so much, I think that the ideas that come from this book aren't just solely about marketing your brand, your product. It's about how you engage with people, period, through fundraising, through events, and creating unique ways to engage with them. The author is Jon Spoelstra, Spoelstra, and I'll type this in. And he's got several books, but his one is called Marketing Outrageously and Even More. And the cover shows a big sumo wrestler dunking a ball. Now, Jon Spoelstra is retired, but he was a huge, he was a well-known executive in the basketball and baseball world, professional sports. And what he was able to do in that arena, which you're thinking, well, those groups have millions of dollars and stuff like that. Well, he worked for teams that sucked, that couldn't even bring people they couldn't even pay people to come to their games. And he was able to turn around, for example, the Portland Trailblazers had a terrible team. Nobody really cared about them. He actually turned it around from interesting marketing ideas that they did and what they focused on to being the #1 attended team with no talent. They sold out. They sold out their season tickets. They sold out their tickets, and they became the #1 team doing that. I mean, that's pretty miraculous when you think about that. They were going against like the Chicago Bulls with Jordan and things like that. So, and he has it's a fantastic book. Michelle just posted on there. It's inexpensive. I highly recommend getting that because it has just made my head spin with ideas. But it's taking those concepts that he has in that and applying it to our events, how we're marketing our businesses, how we are fundraising, how we engage with our fundraisers. All that can be really good. So I know I just added a lot of stuff to there, but you got me excited, Leigh Ann, on all.
And I'll add too, just going back to what you had said, those people who are engaged with your organization, and you might say, all right, they've already been, they're involved, we don't really need to touch base with them. Those are the people that you can really be transparent with how your organization is doing. And if they can give, great. If they can fundraise, great. But as someone that can promote your organization, they can communicate that with their network that, hey, this organization really needs help. It's near and dear to my heart. So and definitely keep them in mind for that. And no, I've said it's careful with your messaging based on your audience, but that group really can be transparent with and your larger donors. So they do feel that urgency to help, because the last thing you want is someone to say, hey, I didn't know that you had to cut programming. I didn't know that this was happening. Why didn't you ask me for support? I'm more than happy to help. So just balancing that, but that's a good group to let them know that you really do need help during this time.
Yeah, and that's an excellent point. And I think the key things for people on there is get out of the mindset of feeling corporate and business-like when you're reaching out. Put a face with things. Be personable. Be vulnerable. Let them see the vulnerability. It's really easy. I've seen some charities where they've got their executive director or CEO talking, but they seem very stiff. And and a lot of times, obviously, they're reading from a script, even if they're or prepared information. But they seem very scripted and they seem very stiff. And, the message can kind of resonate, but it is different than when you see an executive director who starts tearing up at the people that they're helping and knowing that they need help themselves to continuously help those people, because it makes it personable. It shows that their vulnerability and that they're human and they really truly are trying to help. So you remove that kind of, I want to say, corporate or business structure wall. Now's the time to be vulnerable. It's okay. Where, you know, you want people to care about your organization and your fundraising efforts and the reason for them. Allow that vulnerability to show through. I mean, it's always nice. We have people that can create the most amazing graphics and they look beautiful and things like that. But sometimes that vulnerability message and being true and transparent can go a lot further. Awesome. Anyone have any questions around the fundraising pieces of things? And you can put it in the Q&A and chat there. Just some comments Michelle made is, you know, thanks for the great reminders to be personal, reach out directly to the biggest supporters and make that connection. Okay, so here's actually one of the questions that we have. This comes from one of our clients up in the Boulder area, and they have an event called the Merge 5K that goes around supporting their organization that deals with teen suicide. And last year they made their fun run that we help organize stuff virtual. It was on May 3rd, which they had to quickly pivot to do that. They had decided to make registration free, and they got more participants than the past and raised more funds. They're going to be going again virtual this year because of the May date, and still with all the unknown things going on in Boulder has been a bit more restrictive in the events and the allowances there, so it makes it really difficult for them to hold the event. But the following year, they may be looking at doing hybrid. And the question is how to deal with registration fees for a hybrid race. So I think that they looked at, with the virtual, they made it free and relied on people to fundraise in response to that. But going to a hybrid event, any thoughts or recommendations on how you would handle a hybrid race around that? Anybody want to take that?
I can answer.
Sure.
Yeah, most races or events that I've participated in actually have always had a virtual option, and so now we know that virtual options need to have an experience tied to it, where in the past it's been more sign up, be a virtual fundraiser if you don't want to sign up for the event. So it's been seen it free in the past, but now that if there is an experience, still having some type of registration charge, but not necessarily as much as a registration fee that would be in person. So I would look at what kind of experience you're providing folks, and then if there is a component where they will get something out of it other than here's a fundraising page, I think it's fair to charge a fee, but that's lesser than what the normal fee would be.
Definitely, and I was going to add on to that too, is, you know, it's interesting to see. We have seen there, American Heart Association can be a good example. American Heart Association's events typically tend to be free when they have them, and they rely heavily on people to fundraise. And we saw actually one of their biggest challenges that we started working them with is that they saw that fundraising was going down and people coming was going down and being involved. And of course, these were in-person events, not virtual. So 2020 is a little bit of an odd year, and it's hard to know if that's going to sustain itself. So when you look at, because I'm sure there is definitely some events going, gosh, you know, it's so much work and time and effort, and we make, you know, we might bring in revenues of $20,000, but by the time we're done paying expenses, we only net $5,000. Well, we can do a virtual event and I can net $7,000 and I don't have all the expense. So it was easier, it didn't take as much time. Well, that's certainly, you know, I can't discount the fact that those are considerations. You don't know if people, you know, going past 2020 and even 2021, when things do get to normal, hopefully we're this is all a bad nightmare for us in 2022, and we can celebrate in all the normal things that we love to do. But it's hard to know if it's going to remain that if I just switch to virtual and continuously do virtual, that is going to start to see a decline too, because it depends on what you're offering and so forth. I know Cree's got something to say here. I'll give you the second, just 1 second, Cree, let me finish my one thought. And that is, yeah, I agree with Leigh Ann, is think about having a registration fee. Give them something for it. People love to feel the camaraderie, whether it's a shirt or something that goes along with it. We did, and I was surprised by this. I didn't know how successful it would be. We had an organization that came to us that was a kids cancer foundation, a very small organization. They usually do a wine tasting event. They couldn't do it. So they actually called us up and said, we want to do a virtual 5K. I was like, you mean you don't have a 5K already? Like there's no base or anything? And they said, yeah, but we think it, might help us out. And so I said, okay. And so they charged a registration fee, and instead of getting a shirt, they did these awesome tumbler bottle type things that were really cool. And they had about, I don't know, it was maybe close to 100 people signed up. So not huge numbers, but they didn't get that much more than in their wine tasting thing. But they actually raised more than they ever had in their wine tasting. And they still include a registration fee, and people still donated. So the registration, I would answer you, Andy, on this a little bit, and want to hear what Cree has to say, is that don't be afraid just because you offer a free, that by charging a registration fee, and again, if you're offering that experience, that people won't pay for it and still fundraise. Cree.
So I want to reiterate that. I've had the opportunity to go to 2 events, one which I directed and the other one Lonnie directed, one in October and one in November, or one in December, that both offered substantial benefits to sign up. Now you could either do it virtually, but the emphasis was on in-person based on the COVID guidelines. And the response that we got was so powerful. People, first of all, people have to know that they're going to a safe event. That's number one, that's a given. But the second thing is, if they're really getting something of value beyond just the social experience, or if they're doing it virtually, they're still getting something of real value. A great shirt, a great medal, or in one case, we gave a coaster, a really nice stone coaster. People love the takeaways. They're still, and I want to go back to something Leigh Ann said earlier about fundraising. As Lonnie was mentioning, we get all these flyers in the mail and so on. But the ones that I seem to gravitate to are the ones where they give me something at a certain level. It's the little bit of a lure that will get you to participate. So I think if you have a venue where you can do an event and you can give them the option to participate in person, charge a real entry fee. I mean, it's the price of doing business, and they understand it, especially if it's a fundraiser. They're going to, as long as you're giving them a real in-person experience, or if they're too cautious, they want to do the virtual experience, and maybe something like Kern's doing, or David talked about, flesh it out, make it more vibrant, be very creative. I think people will want to, they have an appetite for participation right now, big appetite.
Yeah, if I may add one thing to these last comments, which I fully agree. I think that in general, I think that's also the sentiment that I think both of Lonnie and Craig you had on Tuesday, is like the word virtual suggests that you get nothing. You get like a virtual, you can enter a 5K and that's it. So that has no or very little value. Maybe the first time it's fun, but after that it's not so much fun. So combining, like making a real experience that is more engaging and keeps you like engaged over a longer duration, gives it more value. Combining that with something real, like a shirt, like a medal, that really gives it, like, that allows you to charge a normal fee for it, because even a virtual event it's work. It needs to be done. It needs to be configured. They will ask you questions, and they expect an answer within minutes. So even that is always, there's still work. It needs to be done, and they expect good service for it. So it's not only normal to answer for it, but giving them something like tangible back that they can wear or show that will help them justify maybe for themselves that there's a fee for it. And so I strongly believe that there are maybe virtual events that are fine to be free, but there is also a very good use case to charge for it. It's very normal, I would say.
Yeah, one thing I would add, I think kind of pretty strong consensus here amongst the panel. I do think that if you're organizing an event that is creating an experience, whether that is an in-person experience or it is a virtual experience, and again, a true virtual experience, not simply you participated and we sent you an email, but it's something truly virtual where there's connection and community. I think it is. We've seen lots of our partners be successful with charging for some of the to defray the costs. And I use the term to defray the costs because we've also seen there is, some of our folks have proven that as you begin to increase your registration costs to move beyond covering costs and really to be a big source of fundraising, you disincentivize people to really go out and spread the mission because they develop the mentality of, oh, I've paid my $75 registration fee to get my $20 t-shirt. I don't want to they assume fairly or unfairly that, well, the delta there is going straight to the cause. And so I do agree that it is necessary to charge when you're putting on a premier experience and offering one, or looking for ways to offset it through sponsors or what have you. But I would offer a note of caution that as you drive those registration fees up, there's a pretty massive disincentive for then lots of people to fundraise, and you will ultimately raise less money, or you'll have less money coming in the door. So I realize that's kind of a wishy-washy answer, but I think if you're clear about what the ticket price registration fee covers, and you're transparent about that and transparent that, hey, this is to cover costs, I think that you can really be successful. And that's where we found most of our partners are successful. Again, if you're offering something that's uber experiential and is really kind of a premier event, you should charge for that. I would agree with Cray that, hey, that's the cost of doing business. But I think there is definitely a tipping point where that you can really hurt your overall success if you attempt to charge too much, because people will assume that they're fundraising and don't have to kind of go out and share your mission.
Yeah, I think that's Dave, what you just said there is extremely important. What everyone just went through, and kind of the consensus on that is, I guess, kind of maybe pounding this home to death a little bit, but it is so important to, I know the mentality sometimes can be, well, if we offer for free, they'll do these type of things because they believe in our base. But it doesn't sometimes, and yes, sometimes outside your base gets really excited about the shirts and the medals and things like that. And even in the base, they'll get excited about those things, but it could be different things that you're doing is, let's say you're a virtual event. And I know for this particular event, one of the big things is the butterflies that we do, or sometimes the butterflies that we do, people purchase and those go out on the course with a loved one's name on it. What if you offered that as part of your registration fee? They get that with their loved one on to put in their yard with the logo of the event or the charity. That draws attention and awareness, and it shows that solidarity around the neighborhood. And maybe it's something that they might get other neighbors to do and maybe make it a challenge and things. So there's, I think, different things that you can do and be creative with. That it doesn't always have to be the standard shirt and medal, because it depends on what your event's about. I mean, if your event is very charity focused, you might be able to do something like that, where we have an event with Rudolph Ramble. We support a couple of charities with it, but it isn't solely focused on that. We know we need to have the cute shirts and the medals and things like that get people drawn there. And Dave's absolutely right, and Leigh Ann is too, is that you don't want to price yourself out so high. You probably want to have a reduced thing. So if I were doing a hybrid event, it's at the virtual, or I like the stay at home. The edition is at a little bit lower price point than the in-person one. And because of taking in those factors, sometimes it just kind of depends on everything that they're getting, but sometimes it's a little bit lesser point. in that. And then, you brought up, Andy, I see put up a comment here too with that same organization, is they use the Motigo wall. Motigo, besides being an app, has this really wonderful photo wall that people can leave messages, can post a photo and then put a message, almost like a meme, but obviously not in a funny way, but a meme over it that people fill in the blank. So it could be, I'm supporting this today because of blank, and they fill in the blank and that message goes on there. We love Motigo of that too. One of the things that we've used also is Kudoboard. It's kudoboard.com with a K. It's very inexpensive and doing similar things to that nature, where people can post their photos and videos and even messages out there to create that engagement opportunity to bring them together. Any other topics or things that people have, anything our panelists have thoughts and ideas they want to share from the last 2 days?
I just want to reiterate one very important thing. I think all of us should be watching very, very carefully the rollout of the vaccine because it directly correlates to our industry of whether it's fundraising platforms or it's putting on events. If we are very careful, we will be able to see how this will progress. So actually the articles that have been appearing online today, especially showing the timeline, phase 1, phase 2 groups that get to go when, we need to be paying very close attention to that, because in my very novice analysis, quick pick analysis, I would say it is highly probable if everything goes smoothly, by the end of July, we'll have full-time events again, full-on events. But that's only if everything goes smoothly. So if you know that and you can study that, you can, if you're an event and you have a board, you can talk to your board intelligently about it. If you are an event manager, you can talk to your client about it. And you want to be the smartest person in the room. So that's just my strongest advice right now.
That's great advice, Kriya. And I think that, like you said, watching that is so important right now, because those timelines can change very quickly. Nothing has ever been done like this ever before. I know the UK has started, Canada is getting ready to start, and we're going to be getting ready to start. But nothing has ever been done like this before. It's a huge, massive rollout to be able to do. And it's, not only from a national standpoint, but for us in the United States, it's each state and state down to county levels and all the stuff and the different distributions of getting everyone inoculated. It's a monumental task. And, we put somebody on the moon, many, many decades ago. I know we can do this if we have smart people in the room that listen to it and get it out there the right way. But it's going to take time. It's tough, and we also have the also extra caveat of there's some statistics anywhere that 30 up as high as 50% of people may not feel comfortable despite it being ready to get inoculated right away, which is then going to create a slowdown of us getting a return to things. So. I think it's just important, like Chris said, to watch that and plan accordingly to that. So if I were, which we do have events that are going to be taking place in 2021, if you're through those first 6 to 7 months, I think you're looking at hybrid. And I think if you're looking at after that, I think you are hoping that you're fully in person, but you're probably putting plans in place for hybrid just in case. And that you're ready to do that. And there's also the added thing is, will everybody feel comfortable? Just because you have it and it's full in person, will everybody feel comfortable at that point? It's going to take a while for people to feel comfortable, but I think once they do, I hope it exponentially it ramps up very quickly.
Lonnie, I just want to mention also, when you're writing, even if your event is a small event, get used to writing your emergency action plan, including COVID-19 mitigation. That's not going to go away anytime soon. And also, if you haven't visited with your medical professionals that are associated with your event, it's a good time to start doing that, because they're learning too. They're trying to figure it out too, and they can be a great ally. And the final thing I want to say is that I think it's really important, if you have yet to engage with you, as Lonnie said in the very beginning the other day, if you haven't yet to engage with your local government, your local municipality, county, whatever it is, it's not too late to do that. Maybe it's a good time to do that, because you can then help them develop the rollout timeline for all of this. That's just my final comment.
Yeah, exactly. And we're, as HAL Sports, for a lot of our clients, we play that role. So, we'll happily work with you on those if you need assistance in that, or we take the lead in that, because, for example, in Denver and many other areas around, we're already working with them and have you pegged as something that we need to be paying attention, or you are a concern of ours, I should say, and that we are looking to work with those organizations, those municipalities and officials on those areas. And, it can be a good time, or someone may not want to hear right yet. It's going to be, Cree's going to have his fun, because I've tasked him with our Run Denver series, and our last event actually is all of them are in one municipality except for the last one, and it covers a school district, a city, a county, or 2 different counties, and I think it ends up being like 3 different cities or something like that. So, and they all have, and 2 different health departments on top of that. So he's tasked with trying to navigate that, and hopefully we get everybody on the same page.
I have another idea about that. By the way, I was thinking about it. I did a training run the other morning. Maybe I told you, but I went, wait a minute. If we did it through here and did this, I mean, anyway,
yeah.
I'm with you.
Having a backup plan, just in case if one of the parties doesn't want to play nice, it can be, as I said, the biggest thing is with all of this is patience and flexibility, doing what's right for your organization and event. But the patience is so highly important. We can't anger the permitting agencies and the Department of Health and stuff like that. They have their hands full. We need to work with them. Certainly we don't want to go away and just be like, let them up to their own timeline to get back to us, because, let's face it, they're busy. They have other millions of things to deal with. We're probably not on their list anywhere, but to kindly reach out, say that you have resources, say that you have guidance, things to help out with if they need it. Here's what's been done in other organizations. Here's what's been done with HAL Sports. They can help out, any of those type of things to help out, so that it can get you to, your either hybrid event or some formulation of in-person for 2021. Anybody have anything else? Going once, going twice? Well, we, on behalf of HAL Sports and our entire panelists, we want to thank everybody for being part of our HAL-posium. I hope that all this information was helpful. I'm sure it was a lot to take in, especially where it's a lot of stuff around more of, I would say, crisis management mode of things, where we're looking at, how do we figure out fundraising? How do we figure out these virtual events? How do we use the technology that's out there? What technology is available? How do we work with mitigation plans if we're planning in person? How do we keep people safe? All that. It's definitely a different tone than usually our symposiums deal with. We usually cover safety, and Cree's been great to be our main safety expert in covering those things that we're usually planning for, which is weather related and health issues outside of pandemics. So this is all very new, quickly learned territory for us all. And again, we hope this information has been helpful, and everybody, happy holidays. Stay safe, and we look forward to working with you in whatever capacity your event or community might be doing in 2021.